Why does Jesus Christ tell us as his disciples to fast? Well, the reason is not because God wants to see us suffer, but it's because God wants us to be spiritually strengthened. Okay? So if you see, fasting is a Christian spiritual principle, and it's a very basic and very important spiritual principle. It's not an optional, it's very important. But the reason is what is very important to understand. See, some people think that fasting is about suffering. It's about, denying yourself of food so that, we go through a lot of suffering and, pleasing God and satisfying God. No, but none of that is the reason we should fast. Okay, God is not telling us to fast so that we can suffer more. But He's telling us to fast so that we can be strengthened spiritually. See, the need for food is a good need. It's a legitimate need. But when we humans are controlled by our human impulses, that becomes a problem. And a human who is controlled by his human urges and his human impulses is a weak human being, is a weak person. Okay? So if we don't have the power to control our hunger, to control our human urges, that means we are not strong spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. So God has given us food. God, wants us to enjoy the food that He's given and give thanks to God and enjoy it. But we should not get to a place where we are a slave of food, where we are, a glutton. So that's why the Bible teaches that gluttony is wrong. We must not be controlled by our appetite, controlled by our desire for food. We must learn to control it. Okay, that's why fasting is really important. Because when we fast, we learn to say no to our appetite, to our hunger, to our urges. That builds spiritual strength in us. See, today the problem is that people are very weak spiritually, mentally, emotionally. They don't have self-control. That's why addictions and all come in. That's why people are into gluttony and addictions of all sorts, because people don't have physical, mental, and spiritual strength. Their mind is weak. Their self-control is weak. If a temptation comes, they easily give in to it. It may be temptation for food, drinking, smoking, drugs, sexual temptation. Any of these temptations, the core issue is that you have a lack of willpower, lack of spiritual strength to say no to what is wrong and say yes to what is right. So through fasting, what is happening is we are training our spirit, our mind, and our body to say no, and to control our emotions, control our body's urges, and be a master of our appetite. Not be a slave of our appetite, but to be a master of our appetite. And that's why fasting is really important.